Hello and welcome to the McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show on AudioSportsOnline.com and XRB Radio, the voice of Hendricks County. Upcoming on this episode, we'll have a pretty decent show here tonight. We'll have the privilege of talking to, me and my partner, Chris Worley. No coaches tonight, so we'll just kind of talk about all the action around Hendricks County and look a little bit at some of the sectional matchups coming up. So we'll also talk in detail a little bit about Brownsburg football facing off against Avon football this week in sectionals, as well as Plainfield versus Danville. So Audio Sports Online will have to call both those games. So we'll talk a lot of detail about that and just have some fun and late on our last show of the season.
We've got a lot to cover. That's right.
So you can stop in any Brownsburg or Avon McDonald's and try one of their $2 tasty specials, the jalapeno burger or the triple cheeseburger. McDonald's is a proud supporter of Avon and Brownsburg athletics, and is proud to host the McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show, taped Wednesday nights on location and aired Friday nights prior to football on xrbradio.com, 1610 a.m. McDonald's has two locations in Brownsburg and Avon. In Brownsburg, they are located at the corner of Main and Odell next to Marsh, and just off of Green Street next to Interstate 74. In Avon, they are located off of the corner of 267 and 36 next to Kroger, or off of Rockville Road next to Meyer. Today is Wednesday, October 22nd, 2014, from the Main Street location in Brownsburg. One of my favorite parts about this location, Dawson's 2.
Yeah, no doubt. Nearby,
great
I love it.
little place. Oh, and don't forget about the donut shop across the street.
Right, Hilligoss.
Hilligoss. My wife likes them, but like I used to tell my old cohort, it's got to be Longs. I can't trade Hilligoss. I can't trade Longs for Hilligoss.
I understand,
just can't do
both
it.
good, but of course around here we're going to vote Hilligoss number one. And I'll tell you, though, McDonald's coffee has done good for me all year. I don't like paying $4 or $5 a cup at Starbucks. I'll come here, and it's $1.40.
And you get a big cup?
It's a large, and it's good. McDonald's coffee, thank you.
You can stop in and try their coffee today.
Yep.
But I'm your host, JP Sinclair, and this is Chris Worley, my co-host. And let's go ahead and talk right into it about some Brownsburg. We got a lot to talk about Brownsburg football. And the regular season has ended. The team finished the regular season 3-6. Probably not the record that Coach Comer and his team were hoping for. But, how did you feel, Chris, about this team as a whole during the course of the regular season?
Well, it was an exciting start. You get off to a 3-1 start, and you played that big, heavy schedule. Now, the first game at Pike, lost 19-59. That was a big letdown. The team wanted to get back at Pike after last year's first-round sectional loss, which was about the same score, but the Pike athletes and defense just overwhelmed Brownsburg and pointed up some problems we were going to see a lot of the year with Brownsburg defense. They just weren't able to hold down that high-powered Pike offense in that game. And then
it's funny that you mentioned that because on our very first show we talked to Coach Comer about that, and he said that was one of the things that the team bought into so early on the year, that they were going to go out and they were going to beat Pike because of what they did in sectionals last year, and they just couldn't live up to that.
Yeah, that's why it was a letdown. That hurt. I didn't expect that. I'm not saying I expect them to beat Pike, but I thought they would be competitive. But right out of the gates, and Pike did have a good season, but they ended up being a great team.
And it's also funny you mentioned the fact, we talked about all year long how young this team is, particularly offensively.
Yeah.
But defensively, they have a lot of playmakers that are seniors this year.
Yeah, not a lot of size, but if you look down, I reviewed their season-ending stats here today, and a lot of sophomores and juniors led the way. We have some good performances by seniors, but you look at their top numbers, kids, and it was all ended up being sophomores and juniors.
Well, I looked at the numbers, and a lot of those seniors were the top leading tacklers and tackle for losses.
Right. Yep, no doubt. And then they played Lawrence North and had a good win, 28-14. And then they went on the road at Franklin. And I believe, that was their only road win of the year at Franklin. And the Franklin, we talked about that game. They have an exciting offense. So that was a challenge for the Brownsburg defense that night, and they did well. Tokes had a big game there, and we saw Hunter Johnson's development as a quarterback. And then
Franklin community, you talk about it. I mean, Franklin community, I think, is a good team.
Mm-hmm.
They were a lot older this year, but the problem was they fell apart, much like Brownsburg.
Yeah,
they kind of fell apart towards the later half of the year.
Yeah, it's hard to maintain consistency throughout the year. That's the hallmark of great teams, and the good teams, like we've seen with Avon, you want to be playing your best in the second half of the season. And then speaking of Avon, that was the big win of the year. Brownsburg on their home turf defeated Avon 27-7, and as it turns out, that'd be the last game they won and the last game Avon lost. So after that, things went downhill a little bit, lost at Fishers, and Fishers was clearly a better team. There's just no doubt about it. And then the Westfield loss hurt at home. I felt Brownsburg could have had a better performance there. Yes, Westfield's tough. And then a disaster game at Zionsville, poor weather conditions. Really nothing went right. The coaches weren't happy with their kids that week and everything that went on. So that wasn't good. And then a great game with Noblesville at home, went into overtime. You really felt heartbreak for the seniors. That was their senior night.
Yep.
It was a really tough game. Could have gone either way. Noblesville had a Hail Mary pass at the end of the half there, into the first half that scored. You take that back and maybe, a couple other plays. Could have won that game. And then at Hamilton Southeastern, I did not do that game, but really got beat bad. So overall, you can't characterize it as a successful season. It's got to be another disappointment. Here we are with 3 wins again at this point in the season, the same as last year, JP.
Well, let's go back to that Avon regular season game, and you think about it. That was really the high point of Brownsburg this year. Mm-hmm. And this team, individually had a lot of, I think question marks, but at the same time, a lot of goals. Mm-hmm. We wanted to see Hunter Johnson continue to grow.
Yeah, and he did that.
I think we saw that a lot. Mm-hmm. He was very consistent all year long, took very good care of the ball, really didn't have that many turnovers on the year, was very efficient, I think is a good way to say it, in his sophomore campaign. And I think Tokes, he came into this year, I was reading on his player profile online, he wanted to be a 1,500-yard rusher.
Yep.
And last I checked, he was at 1,300.
Right,
which is a little short, but that's still very, very nice year.
Plus 14 touchdowns. So, that's almost 2 touchdowns a game. So, yep, he had a good year. There were some games he got held down in, but you can't argue with his performance this year.
Well, like we talked about, this team started out of the gates very, very strong, winning 3 of their first 4. But since that big Avon victory, as I said, they have lost 5 straight. Do you feel like there was any one facet to this team's game that really held them back?
Yeah, you'd have to say defense. They just gave up too many yards and too many points, and especially key situations. Now, did some of the guys fight and battle? Sure they did. Did they have some good games? Sure they did. But it just wasn't enough, and you felt like you just had to keep scoring and scoring and scoring. So I think the coaching staff, I believe, would feel the same way, JP. Just needed to see more improvement on defense. Like I said, now there were some outstanding performances. You mentioned, some of the seniors. As far as stats on their team, Seth Bronger had a tremendous year, and we didn't expect anything out of him coming into this season. Michael McCoy had a good season. Bryce Toll had a great season going on defense. He had several sacks, and then he got hurt, missed the last part of the year. Noah Devney did a good job. So Sam Hoffa, I thought, was tremendous as a junior linebacker. But overall, they just couldn't hold teams, hold them down to that 14, 15 points. Brownsburg ended up defensive average was right around 30 points, 31, 32 points a game. Don't have it that last game included, so it may be up from that, maybe 34 points a game. But boy, it's hard to win when you're allowing 34 points a game.
Yeah, and I mean Brownsburg does have. I think another big question mark for this team coming into the year was the changes that they were going to have offensively. Mm-hmm. Not running the flex anymore, going to a different style of offense, mainly the pistol formation a lot. And to try and take better advantage of some of those skill positions. We had a great conversation with the Brownsburg offensive coordinator a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
I can't think of his name off the
top
of my
Yoder.
head. Coach Yoder, thank you. Josh Yoder.
Yep.
Josh Yoder. And, talking to him, I thought was a really great insight to the way this team is going offensively. And like I talked to him about, I mean, 3 of your top skill positions at quarterback, wide receiver, and running back all coming back for a senior year. So if you get a little bit better defensively, it could be a different story next year.
That's right. That's a good point, and that's certainly the hope here now. As far as changing that offense and that experiment, I think it was a success. Now, they ended up averaging 20 points a ball game. Not good, but those included a shutout last game against Hamilton Southeastern and the Zionsville game when they scored only 3 points. Other than that, they're at 30, 34 points a game. So the offense was successful, and that was a big change this year coming in. Brownsburg developed a passing offense, and it won them the Avon game. That short passing offense with Hunter Johnson, and then the emergence of a star receiver like junior Tyler Kurtz, who put up big numbers this year. And he wasn't a receiver last year. So he came on, he played defense last year, and he's really had a good season. So the offense was fine, and that gave a balance to their offense. JP, where they didn't have to just depend on Tokes. Now you had a passing offense to go with the Tokes ground attack.
Yeah, and Coach Yoder said that was one of his biggest mistakes last year, was just not utilizing Kurtz as much as he would have liked. Yeah. And you also think about this team, and the other thing that you mentioned is that win against Avon. Mm-hmm. I've watched a little bit of that game. I just still don't understand how Brownsburg was able to dominate that game the way that they did.
Well, the coaches talked about execution. In that game, that was one game where they executed everything right, and the defense played very well. And we're going to have to point out, too, we're going to add this because Avon's been so good. Brandon Peters had an off night, and Derek Tennant was injured.
That's true.
And that's two big factors for Avon. Brandon just had an off night. I don't know why. I don't know what. I wouldn't say, well, it was great Brownsburg defense, but I know he missed some passes there to Andrew Griffin and them that he normally doesn't miss, and Derek wasn't fully back. Okay, but be that as it may, Brownsburg defense did a good job.
I'm trying to think of the guy's name for Avon's defense also went down in that game.
Yeah.
We had him on the show last week. That's why it's really bad.
Right, Joe got hurt.
Yeah, Joe Belden. Joe Belden.
Yeah.
He got hurt during that game. He was able to come back. Obviously, in the season, that was huge for Avon, but in that game, he did go out, which also turned the game around a little bit as well.
But you know what I wondered then, JP, is after that tremendous win, you'd think that'd give you a lot of comments. What happened? Well, their next game was at Fishers. Now, everybody thought Fishers was going to win that game. Coming into the season, I thought Fishers was the best team in the conference, and they ended up finishing second to Avon. And they got, beat pretty badly there. So I think that hurt the kids' confidence a little bit. And then they come out and lost that Westfield home game, and that was a homecoming, so that hurt them. And then at Zionsville, things just went terribly wrong. And I just don't think they had much confidence going into this last game after that big Noblesville overtime loss, and then just got shellacked at Hamilton Southeastern. And Southeastern got a little bit better as the season went on, but it's been tough for the Brownsburg kids. They have one more chance here in a sectional against Avon.
Yeah, and I think you talked about, that Fishers game, if they had found a way to possibly at least be more competitive in that game, if not try and pull a really big upset victory. Avon was an upset victory.
Yeah.
But if they had gotten to beat both those teams, the rest of the second half of the season could have been an entirely different story.
Yeah. You know what this shows me, JP, and I thought about today as to reasons why this thing's gone sour. They did have some injuries. Bryce Toll, we mentioned, one of their leading tackles, Brad Geilinger, leading defensive backs, got hurt, and I know that hurt him. But I think it was a fragile team emotionally. Whenever you have a lot of sophomores and juniors playing key roles, then that can happen, and they got that big setback at Fishers, and I think that bothered the kids. Zionsville was a horrible performance. I think mentally this was just a fragile team that if something really went bad against them, a few times, it was hard for them to recover, whereas if you have a good team with senior leadership that's been through all the wars and knows that, hey, you're going to have some down moments in the season, you can still come back, then that helps lead you through those tough times.
Yeah, and you got to give credit to that offensive line. That was also a very, very young offensive line, but has done a remarkable job all year long.
Yeah, and I want to give one senior special credit on that. Their center, Owen Gilbert. You talk about that Zionsville game. It was wet, terrible conditions. I always remember, I don't think that kid missed a snap the whole time, and he's their long snapper too. And he played his heart and soul out this year. Owen Gilbert as a center, senior, number 55 for Brownsburg. He helped lead that offensive line, and they did improve as the year went on. The offensive line did improve. So that was tough, but overall in all, a disappointing season for the Bulldog football.
Yeah, my next topic might be a little bit hard for the two of us to talk about, but that HSE game last week, Brownsburg didn't commit any turnovers in this game. They did do a pretty good job taking care of the ball, but they really struggled to move it up and down the field, only mustering up 153 yards of offense on the day. And that just kind of a lack of execution, as we talked about, really kind of led the way. When you look at the Royals' defense, because, the Royals, like we talked about, isn't that great of a team. But, you look at what they've done this year. Head coach Scott Mayers really turned the season around. They didn't have the best start of the year. Their lone win against North Central early was one of their very few victories in the first half of the schedule. But they've turned it on late. And basically, you can look at the time it changed. the Royals got 374 yards of offense on this one. And when you look at it, Scott May changed his quarterback in the middle of the season to junior Carter Pori over senior Tyler Janney. And since that change, the Royals have gone 3-2, and those only 2 losses have been to Westfield and Cathedral, the 2 teams that matched up in last year's state championship. So, I mean, you got to think about that those are 2 quality teams to lose to.
Right. Yeah, they must have really turned that around. You know, they ended up 4-5 overall, and I think they were like, well, you had it there, I think 1-5. So really did a good job here at the end of the season. You always expect Hamilton Southeastern to be competitive and tough in football, certainly. So their early season was a bit of a surprise. Now they came on. I just think Brownsburg just didn't have any confidence in that game. Didn't think, like again, we say a young team didn't think they could go up there and get that win, and proved itself on the scoreboard.
Well, I know we also talked a little bit about that senior night game at Noblesville, and that one, as we talked about, went into overtime. And, speaking of senior night, I mean, a lot of these seniors put in a lot of hard work over the seasons that we don't see most of the time.
Right.
But you can see it come out on the field, if that makes any kind of sense. And it's great to give them some of the recognition. I believe you've given a little bit of them some recognition here on the show, and I believe that they have about 30 seniors on this Brownsburg team, and some of them have had really great service to this team over the years.
Yeah, they have. We want to include Michael Clare in that. This is a kid that played a lot of positions. He was a new punter for him this year, and he punted great.
I believe he had a couple of receptions and also ran the football this year.
Right. Did some runs. Clint Fink, Cam Davis caught a few passes, did some things. We included most of the other guys. One senior we don't want to fail to mention is nobody knew much about him at all coming into this year. It was Jose Hacker, right. Ended up making all his field goals. I don't know his results at Hamilton Southeastern.
They hadn't updated the stats.
So. Okay.
I checked last night. Max Preps had no stats entered from Brownsburg on that game.
But Jose Hacker, it's a shame he's a senior. We love this kid. He really came on and did a good job this year. But you're right about senior night. That was a big night for those kids. Owen Gilbert loss. And all them. Oh man, it was really tough. I saw a few of them afterwards, and they just were really disappointed. But it was a great high school football game.
Well, up next, as we talked about, this team, their last victory of the year, really, was against that Avon team in the regular season. And while that game meant a lot to this team, they also have to face them here again in sectionals. And this one will be a very, very tough and exciting matchup. I mean, you get to play your rival more than once, but this time it's in a big, big game. And as we talked about, since that game earlier this year, these 2 teams have really gone in completely different directions. Avon has not lost since that matchup and will be a tough team to beat. And but, I mean, how does that previous game, as we talked about earlier, this season factor into the game plan going into this one?
Well, one thing is, you can beat them. We've done it. We have beat this team. Now, Avon was a little down that night, like we said, but, hey, you've beat them, so you technically can do it again. But I just don't know their emotional state right now. I don't know how good it's going to be. That's a very tough assignment. Of course, you don't want to play Ben Davis or Pike either, so I think this is the best matchup Brownsburg could get in this sectional. So they have a chance, but there's just a lot of things are going to have to go right for them. Don't turn the ball over. Rush the ball well. Play good defense. And I think, too, they're going to need a couple big plays. A kickoff return for a touchdown.
Turnover.
A pick six. Something like that. And don't get behind early. If they get behind early against the Avon Orioles, then you're going to see Derek Tennant and Darian Love just take over with that strong rushing attack. And I was looking at Avon's ends. We've had them both on the show. Joe Belden and
Rashawn.
Yep. Yeah, Rashawn. Boy, those 2 are a load on the ends. They both have got a lot of tackles for losses. So Brownsburg's line is going to have to be put into a position of really having to block well. I think you'll see Brownsburg use that. They're going to try to use that short passing attack that won them the Avon game the first time, except now Avon knows, hey, we've got to watch out for Hunter, and these receivers are going to try to do that again. So you may see a few balls down the field a little bit, but it should be interesting. I think Brownsburg has a chance, but I would definitely give the edge to Avon in this game. Okay,
well, before we go on, I know you had some, he's the Brownsburg expert.
So far.
I guess I'm the Plainfield expert.
Right.
Per se.
Yeah, I would say
I've seen a lot of Plainfield this year, and I know you have some questions about them going into their sectional matchup.
Right. So. Before I left Brownsburg, I just want to hand out, I'm just going to give a couple of awards here.
Our
offensive MVP, of course, is Tokes Akinroboti. Hunter did have a good year, but Tokes put up big-time numbers, a lot of TDs. Defensive MVP, senior Seth Bronger led the team in tackles. There's a number of guys you could give it there. I thought junior Sam Hoffa was in on so many plays this year. And for the breakout season, certainly wide receiver Tyler Kurtz.
And I'm going to go most improved. Who do you think I'm going to give that award to?
Well, Owen Gilbert, the center. He was not expected to be the full-time center this year.
I'm actually going to give it to the quarterback.
Snapped it every game. Yep.
Hunter Johnson, for me, most improved. I mean, you look at what he had to deal with last year, and then this year, they changed their whole offensive system really for this one guy. They hired a new quarterback coach for this one guy, and you can see it paying dividends.
Yep.
I think that's the most amazing part. And you and I talked about it on the show. We both think Brandon Peters is an amazing quarterback. He's going to go on to a great collegiate career, I think. But at the same time, I think Hunter Johnson has the wherewithal and fortitude to kind of become an even better quarterback than Brandon Peters currently is.
Yeah, I think so. They put up really similar numbers. But, yeah, I think so. And that's probably true, most improved. I'm not used to giving sophomores awards, but I guess you're right. Certainly, yeah. And he's the featured player in the Brownsburg offense.
What are some of his numbers on the season?
Yeah, he finished. Of course, he didn't get any more touchdown passes, so he finished with 10 touchdowns. He had over 1,200 yards. Averaged about 173 yards a game. So those are some good numbers. I gave up 7 interceptions against 10 touchdowns. So that's his ratio there. But
I thought it was actually better than that, to be honest with you. I'm surprised to see that high interception number.
Yeah, and those all came in the back half of the year again when they were having trouble and they had to throw and score. But he learned a lot this season, and this sectional will be a good experience for him. I expect him to have big junior, senior. By the time Hunter Johnson's a senior, he'll be an all-state performer.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yep. Coming into Plainfield now. Plainfield is going to match up against Danville. I know we'll mention this later too, but Danville 4-5. Who are some of the best players? Now I know Plainfield started a little rough, but tell us about the way Plainfield's season overall went.
Well, not good. Mm-hmm. They really struggled this year. Do you happen to have their schedule in front of me? I mean, I can name some of the games off the top of my head.
Yeah,
they struggled against Mooresville. They're really bad against a high-powered passing attack. They don't have the
Decatur
best secondary.
Central,
Mooresville lit them up. Decatur Central lit them up. Martinsville. All three of those teams throw the ball around the yard. All three of those teams won by a major margin. Mm-hmm. Plainfield is a ball control team, and they're a defensive run-stopping team.
Yeah.
And they do their best damage in those kind of games. You talked about Franklin Community. Can't run the ball. Plainfield got the win. The other game that they played really, really close against a team that ran the ball pretty much a dominant amount of time was Whiteland.
Yeah.
And Whiteland was a good team. That was a close game up until the end when just a couple of late scores from Whiteland, because that game was 17-17 going into the fourth quarter. Yeah. Either team had a good opportunity to win that one. So they do a very, very good job stopping the run. They have a young, weak secondary. Dylan Foster was one of the breakout stars of the year at the running back position.
Right.
We all expected Jacob Maple to be the go-to running attacker for this Quaker team, but as the season progressed, they had so many injuries in the backfield. Maple went down in the first game. John Finch, their backup, went down for the year in their second game against either Mooresville or Roncalli. Actually, it was their third game because they had Danville second. So that was a big loss for them. And then Coy Anderson, who was really the third running back, but was never really expected to do much because he was expected to play a lot more defensively. According to Coach Woodard, when I talked to him, he was supposed to be featured much more on the defensive side of the ball. Had to really do a lot of runs, and he's not built as a running back.
Yeah.
He's a speedster, but he's not good running north and south. He's better east and west, trying to get along the edge. And Plainfield just doesn't have that kind of rushing attack setup, particularly with their formation. And then, so when Jacob Maple finally came back, it was really against Greenwood, which was in the middle of the season. He had some good receptions. Their quarterback is a very, very short passer. You see a lot of screen passes, maybe a few short passes across the middle of the field, but very rarely. It's pretty much all screen passes or run plays from Plainfield. I think that hurt them. They didn't have a constant deep threat, and you would see a lot of teams stack the box with 8 or 9, even 9 guys. Decatur Central had no guys back.
Yeah.
I'll never forget.
Wow.
I'm sitting here calling the game, and I see every single player for Decatur Central on the line of scrimmage.
Wow.
I'm like, throw the ball deep.
Right.
You have single coverage on
Just
the
couldn't do it.
outside.
Yeah.
They had a lot of young wide receivers too. They were supposed to have senior Garrett Patton back. I'm not sure what happened to him, but he wasn't available. Didn't play this year. I think that hurt because they didn't have a lot of seniority at the wide receiver position. Niswander, the quarterback, I don't want to say he has a bad arm. He doesn't have a great arm, but he has a manageable arm.
What year is he?
He's a junior.
Okay. So we would expect him back and develop work over the summer. May improve.
Possibly.
Probably grow some.
But there was a lot of Garrett Key. I'm trying to think of the two. There's Keys and Ritter were two players that were both sophomore wide receivers. Got a lot more game time as the season progressed due to their youth. They were very, very impressive as the season wore along, particularly Keys. Him and Niswander seemed to have a little bit more chemistry than a lot of the other wideouts on the team did with the quarterback. I think that if that continues, that could be a good weapon down the road. So, I mean, all in all, I'm not going to say it was a terrible season. I think they have a good opportunity here coming up in sectionals. They've already beat Danville once. Danville is a very, very aggressive team. They will take a lot of risks. But, I mean, kind of like Brownsburg. You've already beat them once, but Danville's not as good as Avon.
Yeah, right.
And, you look at the schedule. If they beat Danville, then they have a little bit of leeway. I think they might have to play Lebanon in the next round. I keep trying to think. I might have wrote it down. I remember looking at it.
Well, in sectional play, some 2-7 team is going to win this week. Why not?
Yeah, because I think Ron Colley and Bishop Chatard on the other side.
Okay.
So they won't have to play them till almost the late sectional round, which might be a very... Because I think those two teams are going to play each other, so you might only have to face one of them.
Yeah.
So that definitely helps when you look at the 3A bracket.
Well, and I was going to ask you about their junior, senior, sophomore mix, and definitely
very
a young team.
Very young team. Very few seniors.
Good sectional experience for them, and a lot of development I would expect over the summer.
Yeah, I think off the top of my head, you had 2 or 3 seniors on either side of the ball. That was it.
Yeah.
Very, very young team and injured. That was the other side of it. I mean, you have a young team that's also injured.
Right.
So that doesn't help either.
That's a double whammy. He ended up giving up second most points in the conference to Franklin, 259 points total opponent points. So that defense really struggled this year.
And they did struggle. I think it was about last I checked was about 30 points per game, and it's not even their offense came along because they were averaging at one point close to 10 points per game this year. But as the season's progressed, they've gotten better at that. Their points per game has gone up. Defensively, there's been a few games that have really boosted that average up. Like I talked about the Mooresville game, which was very, very one-sided. Favorite had a lot of yards throwing in that one for Mooresville. Ron Colley was also it was a closer matchup, but still kind of one-sided when you looked at the final score. Decatur Central and then the last week's game against Martinsville. Those were really the 4 games that you can look at and say that really changed the course of their points per game against average.
Yeah. Okay.
Because they were pretty competitive in most of the other games.
Well, sounds like just some work to do here over the summer, and maybe they can get this first one done in the sectional. It'll be an upset, but they could do it. Like you said, they beat Danville once.
Yep. So, I think it's a good opportunity for them to pick up a sectional win. I think it was kind of the best draw that they could possibly have hoped for.
Could have had a worse draw, right?
Oh yeah, much worse when you looked at who look at Bishop Chatard, Ron Colley, both being in the same regional, sectional. Those are 2 very, very tough teams that they would have had to face. I'm actually interested. I think I might try and pull up that bracket real quick, and so we can talk about it a little bit because it was a very, very interesting bracket. I looked at it last night, and I have it up, so I might as well pull it up.
Sure.
Let's see here. Football, boys, sectionals, and we want 3A.
Now, Jacob Maple healthy now?
He is healthy, and I think that goes a long way to helping them out in the long run. In Franklin Community's game, he started the game. He went down early, did not come back to that game, but he was also back the next game after the Franklin Community game. And
I think Jacob plays basketball for them, too.
Correct, he does. But having that 1-2 punch between him and Dylan Foster, I think will help them out a lot because, I talked to you about this a little bit ago. I think Avon I think they're going to be able to make some noise. I'm just worried they might have used Derek Tennant too much late in the season. He had a lot of carries late in the season.
Yeah, he really put up all his numbers were towards the end of the season. Of course, Darian Love carried a big load, but they have that 1-2 punch, so a defense can't look out for just one guy.
Yeah, and that like I said, that worries me a little bit when you look at what might possibly happen to that because they have Darian Love. That's the other side. And
very talented.
He's a very, very talented running back, and I just don't know if they used him enough late in the year. I think I might even be looking. I think there might be 4 days. So I think I might be looking in the wrong place.
Okay, we're going to find it here for you, folks.
Yeah, I'm adamant about finding it now.
Plainfield sectional draw.
It's never. You can never find something when you need to find it. There it is, Danville, Plainfield. They'll face the winner of Northview, Mooresville, which also I think would be a winnable game. They got dominated by Mooresville, but when you have tape on somebody, it gives you an opportunity. So if Mooresville beats Northview, you have a second-round matchup that still is favorable because then you only have to worry about Bishop Chatard Roncalli in the final, right before regionals. So
Mooresville finished 4-5, and they lost their last 2 games, so certainly not great.
Yeah, I mean it's a very, very. When you look at the sectional draw for Plainfield, it was really. I was looking at it the other night. I'm like, that's about as favorable as it can get.
Yeah.
Because Roncalli and Bishop Chatard will have a chance to go at it, and one of those you're not going to have to face one or either of them. Well, chances are you'll have to face one of them. Roncalli faces Northwest in that sectional, and also Bishop Chatard faced Lebanon.
Well, it gives the kids a good 2-7 record this year. Gives the kids a good chance to let's get excited, let's go out and let's try and win this sectional game.
Yeah, so I think they have an opportunity to go deep in this sectional round. I mean, they got the best draw they could possibly hope for.
Yep.
So let's go and take a quick timeout and catch our breath. We've been talking a lot. Yes. It's only 2 of us, so we're going to take a quick timeout and catch our breath, and when we come back, we'll break down some of the other Hendricks County sports action going on, and we'll also have the wrap-up to our Pick'em Challenge. Maybe not the results some of you were expecting, so we'll have that when we come back. You're listening to AudioSportsOnline.com, the Hendricks County Sports Show. welcome back. This is the McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show on AudioSportsOnline.net, brought to you by your local Brownsburg or Avon McDonald's. You can stop in any Brownsburg or Avon McDonald's and try one of their $2 tasty specials, the jalapeno burger or the triple cheeseburger. McDonald's is a proud supporter of Avon and Brownsburg athletics and is proud to host the McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show, taped Wednesday nights on location and aired Friday nights prior to football on xrbradio.com, 1610 a.m. McDonald's has 2 locations in Brownsburg and Avon. In Brownsburg, they are located at the corner of Main and Odell next to Marsh, and just off of Green Street next to Interstate 74. In Avon, you can find them at the corner of 267 and 36 next to Kroger, or on Rockville Road next to Meyer. So stop in and try either one of those today. You can try a coffee. You can always get a large soda for $1.
Right.
And not to mention, some McDonald's locations, McRib is back.
Yep. Good pricing, too.
Craig Ferguson is a great comedian, one of the best lines I've ever heard. Why would they bring sexy back? Why don't you bring something useful back? Bring the McRib back, right. And it is finally back here.
Yep, that's good. Very popular. That's right.
So I had that for lunch. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, there you go. Good.
I love the McRib. I don't know why it ever leaves, but when it comes back, man, I'm on it.
A lot of people are hitting it. No doubt about that, JP. A lot of people hit it.
Well, normally I'm just now joined by my co-host Chris Worley, but we've had the entire show to ourselves.
Yep.
So I can't say now I'm joined by Chris as usual. So I'm just going to say, hey, Chris, welcome back.
We're here. Yeah, and thanks to McDonald's all year for hosting us here on both in Avon and Brownsburg locations for the McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show. Been a lot of fun.
Well, let's talk a little bit about last week. We continued along in our Pick'em Challenge. In last week's games, I had to make up some ground. You were leading 9-7, so I had to pick some
you had to go for it.
Yeah, I had to go for some games I wasn't too thrilled about. I'll put it like that. I had hope. But hope only gets you so far.
Like the Greenwood-Whiteland game. Right, I know.
But let's go ahead and start with that first game, because I got this game right.
Yeah.
In the first game, I selected Columbus North to upset Southport, and the Bulldogs came through for me. They beat the Cardinals 31-28.
Exciting game.
I said it going into this one. Southport has been playing with fire all year long, and they were due to be burned, and that's exactly what happened in this one. They've just been scraping by all season. I don't have a lot of postseason hope for this team, but you are what your record says you are.
Yeah,
and they're 7-2.
Right. Yeah, I wonder what they'll do in sectionals, but that must have been a great game. Southport fans a little disappointed. They're expecting big things after those results, but like you said, everything's been close, and it came down on them in this game.
Yeah, and I'll never put anything against the Coach Bless.
Yeah.
So that's who it's Coach Bless of Avon's brother, coaches at Columbus North.
Right.
And I had the privilege of talking to him at the very first Plainfield game of the season, and that was a very, very impressive team. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, I have full faith that Columbus North, the Bulldogs, can go into this game and get a win against Southport, and that's exactly what they did.
And they did.
So, and like I said, Southport had been playing close all year long. They have Perry Meridian. I think that's a very, very winnable game for them in their sectional. That's a good school rivalry, but Perry Meridian isn't that great of a team. So, I think Southport will advance out of the first round of the sectionals, but the deeper that team goes, the less hope I have just because of how close they've been playing all year long. They just don't give me a lot of confidence. That point differential just does not get to me.
Okay, we'll trust you on that one, JP. So after that one, you pulled up close, the overall Pick'em Challenge, 9-8, CW in front.
Yeah, I was close. Okay. I was about as close as I got.
Oh, what happened in the next one?
Our next game was Greenwood versus Whiteland. You selected Whiteland in that one and got the win as Whiteland proved victorious, 24-7 winners over the Woodmen. And this game really decided the Pick'em Challenge. It gave you a 10-8 lead, making it impossible for me to come back. And that's a good rivalry game.
Yeah,
I like I said, I didn't pick. I thought Whiteland had the better advantage going into this one, but it wouldn't have surprised me if Greenwood had won.
Yeah.
Greenwood was, I think they finished 4-4, so a very respectable, middle of the road record. They have a great quarterback that's fun to watch, Tanner Skeel, great running back in Gallman. The problem is, like a lot of teams in the mid-state, they can't throw the ball. Either in the mid-state, you can either not throw the ball at all, so you do nothing but run, or you can only throw the ball, so you never run and you only throw the ball. So it's very. There's not a lot of middle ground in the mid-state.
Yeah, Whiteland finished 6-3, and we talk about it with all these teams. It's a high school coach has a quarterback that is talented and that can throw, get people open, get the ball out to his receivers to make plays. It's worth its weight in gold in high school football. It's hard to do.
Decatur Central, I think, is about the only team in the Mid-State Conference that has such a good running game as well as passing game, and it's all orchestrated very, very well.
Yeah, it's hard to find.
In our final game, which really didn't matter, we had Bishop Chatard versus Arsenal Tech. I said it at the all year long. I picked up against Bishop Chatard, and each and every single time I lost. Yeah. So I think that was my major downfall of the season, as I just couldn't get behind Bishop Chatard. And each time I picked against the Trojans, they've won. And they did just that over Tech. They finished that game 46-24. That was the final on that one. So we finished our pick'em 11-8 was the final, and you proved victorious, Chris. So I mean,
close.
Apparently, you know much more about high school football than I could ever.
I don't know about that. Got a little lucky there, though. That was tough, and that was a lot of fun. 11-8, though. It was close enough, JP. Good job.
Close enough. Well, I'm looking forward to, if we come back for the winter season, I'm looking forward to doing that for basketball.
Yeah.
Because I've once like football, I've only been doing this for a couple of years. I don't have nearly the knowledge base to draw upon as I would like, but I continue to get better, and I think next year or next season, if we do the winter sports season, we might have to have something going on more with that, like, I don't know, loser shaves his head or something.
Right, got it. That sounds good. Okay. Basketball's going to be a little tougher to pick. Anything can happen, and I think football's such a strength and power game that I think there's fewer upsets, but we'll see.
Well, even if it's not until football next year, we'll have to have some kind of caveat to go with the game. You can send us your suggestions.
Right.
So
let's do that.
You can email us, if I can find the email that I created last week. You can email us at Hendricks County Sports, all one word, Hendricks County Sports @gmail.com.
Gmail.com, easy. Okay.
So I figured I would make that one just for the show, so we have that. So feel free to give us an email or shout out on Twitter.
What does the loser of the Pick'em contest have to do?
Exactly. What does the loser of the Pick'em Challenge, whether it be in the winter season for basketball or next fall season for football, have to do? We're going to leave it up to the fans.
You may regret that, JP.
I probably will. I've lived long enough to regret most of the things in my life. So
that'd be fun.
So I had a lot of fun with the Pick'em Challenge.
Yeah,
it was fun picking the games every single week, looking at what games were featured.
I did my best.
I did my best to try and pick a little bit of IPS, a little bit Sagamore, Mid-State,
good mix.
HCC. Mm-hmm. I think each and every single week there was usually you had at least a MIC HCC. You had a MIC game, an HCC, or and I say Metropolitan.
Yeah.
Because that's really the big conference when you look at Ben Davis, Warren Central, Carmel.
Right.
Usually I try to have an HCC game or a little mid-state game.
Sure.
And then usually a wild card game.
Like a Broad Ripple.
Yeah, like an IPS.
Broad Ripple got in there.
Or an individual team that's not affiliated with the conference.
Yeah, so that's good.
It was a good mix.
We had
a lot of fun with it, I think.
We'll do it again.
So let's go and talk about some of the other sports results from last week. And we'll start with the Berg, Brownsburg. The varsity football team lost to Hamilton Southeastern, as we talked about last Friday, by a score of 36-0. Despite having no turnovers on the day, the Dogs produced just 153 yards of offense while yielding 374 yards to the Royals. The team will travel to Avon this Friday to kick off sectionals. So I don't know.
I was just thinking this. I wonder how important this game is. And I know it's important to the kids, but this game may have a little importance as far as the Brownsburg coaching staff in the future. And I'm not saying anybody's in trouble with their job or whatever, but not very good results these past 2 years, so let's see what happens. Of course, we trust Coach Comer to come up with a good game plan here, and he has against Avon. They've already defeated him. But I'm just wondering, this program's had too much success to be too down after 2 straight down years is what I want to say. They've got a lot of juniors, sophomores that led the way this year. They'll come back, so they need to see some improvement, and they can start right here in sectionals.
Yeah, I think that's it's always a difficult subject to talk about.
It is,
but I mean, you look at it's results based. Period.
It is, JP, and this community from their football team is used to good results. Now here's 2 down years in a row, and you should be able to live with that with their past success. But it's been a while since they won a state championship.
Yep, and 84, 85.
Yep, and I think we said we looked at their last sectional or regional was 2006.
Yeah, and that was when Comer took over.
Right, so it's been a little while. Like to see him get it done. I think next year will be much better. You got a lot of talent coming back next year. I really look for next year to be better.
Yeah, I think next year will be the deciding year.
There you go.
I think the pressure might be put on at the end of this year, depending on what the final result is for next year.
That makes more sense.
Next year will be the kind of the deciding year. Okay, this was a young team, particularly offensively. Offensively, you were great last year.
Yeah.
defensively not so much.
Yeah.
What are you going to change
Yep.
to try and improve on what your record was?
That makes more sense to me, JP. Well, let's give them another year.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I think that's where it falls when it comes to Brownsburg and the future there.
There we go.
The boys cross-country squad continues to advance in the postseason for Brownsburg. In the 2014 Indiana High School Athletic Association Ben Davis Regionals, the Brownsburg team finished in 4th place, which was high enough for them to advance to the semi-state round, which will be this Saturday. Harry Sathamurthy, once again, was the individual runner, and he basically won the individual competition. He was first with a but a time of 15 minutes and 52 seconds.
Great time.
The only person to finish under 16 minutes out of the entire field.
Fantastic.
So, really, he's had an excellent season
Yeah, he really
all
has.
year long. We
Yep.
pretty much said his name at every single
Every
event
week.
for Brownsburg. So, congratulations to Harry on that individual score in regionals. The Bulldogs also got an 8th place finish from Mark Bond. Semi-state is free to attend and is at Carmel this weekend. The top 10 individuals top 10 individuals from non-qualifying teams and the top 6 qualifying teams will advance to semi-states, advance from semi-states to state finals after this weekend's competition. I don't know if I said that very well. Let me try and say that again. This weekend at Carmel is semi-states.
Semi-state.
The top 10 individuals,
Yes.
not from qualifying teams, meaning you didn't finish in the top 6. Those individuals advance 2 states,
There you go.
and then the top 6 teams
Qualifying teams, right.
advance as well to the
That's
state
it.
finals.
Very well. That's good. You got it, JP. And that's a great performance by boys cross country there for Brownsburg. Harry's been fantastic. Like we said, we mentioned his name all week. So very good. Should be good weather for the semi-state this weekend. Of course, it's at Carmel, and that's kind of the home of cross country success here in Central Indiana. So that'll be a big time for everybody up there.
So good luck to the boys of Brownsburg in that competition. It's also on to semi-state action for the girls cross-country team as they placed 5th out of 10th, which was on the bubble for regional teams to advance to semi-state. They made it into the important top 5 to advance. Julia Popenfoos finished in the top 10 individually with a strong run time of 18 minutes and 50 seconds. Cassidy Brown finished in 16th place. They'll also play in the semi-state competition this Saturday at Carmel, so good luck to the girls as well.
Outstanding performance, yep.
The volleyball team for Brownsburg improved to a very impressive 24-6 record with a 3-0 sweep of Mooresville. The offense was led by Avery Brown with 7 kills. Brooke Gregory and Kaylin Knox added 6 apiece, while Michaela Hoffa chipped in 5. Allie Byers once again had a good match. We said her name a lot this year, distributing 32 total
32
assists. She's always been up there in the 30 numbers. And you look at some of the other results, even some of the Plainfield and Avon teams, they don't have quite these same assist numbers. So
Right.
she's had an excellent
And I believe
year
she's
for
a
volleyball.
junior, so she's got another season to go.
The defense was led by Jess Van Loo with 3 blocks. Riley Cookerly added 14 digs, and Mallory Rourke contributed 6 digs as well in that victory. The volleyball team concluded their regular season with a 3-0 victory over Speedway. The Volley Dogs finished the season 25-6, ranked 9th in the final poll. Leading the offense in that game was Avery Brown and Brooke Gregory with 16 and 14 kills, respectively. Allie Byers, once again, dishing out an amazing 42 assists in the victory. Really just did a good job managing the offense. Defense was once again led by Claire Hathaway with her net play and Riley Cookerly with 18 digs each. The Dogs start their sectional play Thursday. That'd be tomorrow at 6 o'clock. At Mooresville High School against Terre Haute South.
Yep, planning on going. I want to get back to seeing them. My schedule's forced me to miss several of their most recent matches, but been to a couple. But I plan to go at sectional at Mooresville tomorrow night. These Brownsburg girls deserve the community support. They've been tremendous. They may be nominated for one of our Hendricks County Teams of the Year here, but they've done a good job. Now they need to get the job done in sectional. And, of course, like we said, the volleyball schedule's crazy. It's demanding.
Yep.
It's a lot of matches, and there's multiple rounds to a sectional title. I know they play Thursday. They win there, then they play Saturday.
Yeah, and you have very short rest.
Yep.
We talked about that as well. I mean,
That's a long
you're playing
tough
almost
season.
every other day for volleyball. So
And it's a physical sport. They're diving all over the court. That's a physical sport. All due respect to the girls there of volleyball. So I'll be there tomorrow night. Let's see what happens.
Yep, and taking a look now at Plainfield High School. The Plainfield football team lost to Martinsville 37-14 last Friday. The Quakers went in the half down 16-0, but did manage to put up 14 in the second half. But the Artesians did not let up. They won in the final with that one, 37-14. Senior Josh LaRue had a field day against the Plainfield secondary, throwing for 394 yards on 30 of 40 passing and 2 touchdowns. LaRue also rushed for 1 score in that one as well. One of Plainfield's 2 victories on the season was to Danville, like we talked about, who they'll face off against this Friday in sectional competition in Class 4A.
Now, where is that sectional game?
It's at Plainfield.
At Plainfield. Good. Okay, so they'll have a home crowd out there. It's going to be good weather. Let's get them up and fired up for this game. And like we talked about, they have a chance here in sectional to make a poor season somewhat right and get that win.
The girls cross-country team for Plainfield advanced 2 semi-states with a 4th-place finish in the regional competition at Ben Davis. Samantha Woodford finished 2nd place individually with a time of 18 minutes and 21 seconds. Only 19 seconds, really, from the first-place finisher. Samantha Olinger also finished in the top 20 with a 16th-place finish, finishing at a time of 19 minutes and 49 seconds. They'll compete in the semis this weekend at Carmel, so congratulations go out to the Lady Quakers. The boys' team was really the only team that we cover on this show for cross-country that fell just out of the bubble in that cross-country. So each and every single one of the 3 schools that we talk about mainly on this show, cross-country, has had an amazing, outstanding year.
I was going to say, they're going to have good representation this weekend at the semi-states up at Carmel, Hendricks County.
The Quaker Ladies varsity volleyball team finished their regular season 20-11.
Good season.
Very, very good season. Following an 0-3 loss at home to a very, very good 30-3 Northview team. Mallory Wright and Anna Phillip had 7 kills apiece for the Quakers. Junior Kia Farrell had 6 blocks to pace the defense, and junior Aspen Parker had 10 digs. They'll play either Mooresville or Martinsville on October 25th as they got the first round bye.
Yeah, good for them. They've had a great season. They deserve that bye. So anytime you win 20 wins on a season with the volleyball, that's good.
And lastly, now let's go and talk a little bit about Avon High School. The Avon football team continued to coast this week, picking up the 21-16 win over Noblesville. The Orioles had to overcome a subpar performance from star quarterback Brandon Peters, who really struggled in this one. Only 73 yards on 7 of 19 passing, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Just not typical Brandon Peters numbers that we're used to seeing.
Right.
Derek Tennant was also very good, however, getting 2 touchdowns and 173 yards on 38 carries. Avon got 5 sacks total in this one. Rashawn Brent, Thomas Hicks, A.J. Elcock, and Gunnar Lawson all had at least 1 sack in the game, except for Elcock, who had 2. Braden Luce also had 1 interception for the Avon defense, who will play against the last team they lost to, and that is Brownsburg. I don't know how many times we can say it on the show, but I'll say it one more time.
I'm glad you mentioned Braden Luce. He's had a good season. Besides his work on defense, he has 261 receiving yards, returns kickoffs a little bit, punts. So Braden Luce, a good season there. I did go ahead and name some MVPs for Avon, if you will,
go ahead.
On this season. Their offensive MVP, Derek Tennant and Darian Love had a great season. You can't throw them out, but of course Brandon Peters played every game, all 9 games, put up some good numbers. He's their leader, no doubt. So I have him as their offense MVP. For defense MVP, Matt Thompson. Good kid, good linebacker, led the team in tackles. Of course, you got to include their ends in that, like we talked about, Joe and Rayshawn Brent.
Joe Belden.
Yep. A breakout season for them, no doubt. Their receiver, Andrew Griffin, far outdid all their other receivers in yards. He had 638 yards on the year, 6 touchdown catches. He averaged 70 yards a game receiving. So Andrew Griffin,
he's only a junior
breakout
as well.
Yep, he's a junior. So
plays basketball as well, if I remember right.
I can't remember that.
I think he does.
I know Brandon Peters does. Peters is a good basketball player, but great year for Avon. They're going to try and get the job done here in sectional, and we both talked about it. We feel they get the job done sectional, and Kyle Niedenram for the Star reported this also. Avon's got a chance to go.
They're a dark horse pick.
Yep.
Yeah, I read that article as well in the Star.
Congratulations.
Camp had them as our dark horse pick.
Yeah. Coach Bless and his staff, what an outstanding job. Didn't start too well, but after that Brownsburg game, they have just, they've won out. So fantastic for Avon football.
Yeah, and I'm like you. I think that's such 6A. I mean, you look at it, such tough competition. You got Warren Central, you got Carmel, you got Ben Davis, all in the same sectional.
Yeah.
So I mean, if they can somehow get through this sectional, I think it might actually get easier for them heading down the road into regional and semi-state.
That could be true. That's a good point. I hope
the only other team outside I can think of that's not in this sectional is Penn.
Right. So I hope they get the job done. That's going to be very difficult. I feel they'll get the job done here Friday night, but then what then, Pike or Ben Davis, boy. But I think Avon can go a long way. I think it can beat both those teams.
Yeah, I mean, if they get Pike, I think that'll be better for them. Obviously, the quarterback situation at Pike is a little bit up in the air.
Yeah, Trudeau out.
And I don't think Pike has really – I think they've lost a lot of confidence, too, particularly early on in that tough, brutal schedule that they had.
Yep.
So I think that'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on as you go forward in the sectional season for football. But I'm like you. I think Avon has a very, very good chance to possibly get the state title this year.
They've got a chance to go all the way.
It's a dark horse chance.
Yeah.
It's not the number one seed, if you will, but they're in the top half of that section.
I know the other coaches probably don't want to play.
No.
Simple as that.
The girls' soccer team fell to Brebeuf Jesuit 0-3 in regional semifinal action for Avon. The lone goal was from sophomore Emma Mazarik for Brebeuf. Avon did have 9 shots on goal, 3 from Bailey Storms alone, but they just couldn't get it past senior Annie Clark for Brebeuf, who had 8 saves in this one. So they fell out of the tournament. Avon High School boys team faced a very good Brebeuf team, Jesuit, as well in regional play, but fell just short also, losing 0-1. Senior Jake Yerkes had the lone goal for Brebeuf, but congrats to Coach Philip Schmidt on a very, very good season.
Yeah, no doubt. For both those soccer clubs, it had to be a disappointing win. They both had state championship aspirations in the top 5 in rankings all year long, Avon boys and girls soccer. So tough way to end, but a great season overall.
The girls' volleyball team finished the regular season 24-8, ranked 5th in the state. They closed the regular season with a 3-0 win at Ben Davis. Senior Beth Prince had 10 kills for the Orioles. Brooke Peters and Kaylee Keating had 8 digs apiece to help them defensively. The team starts sectional play at Terre Haute North Vigo in the state tournament tomorrow at 7 o'clock.
Yep, there we go. This volleyball state tournament's going to be a monster. Avon's been state champ before, so that's going to be interesting to see how they do.
Avon girls and boys cross country continued to impress, both finishing in first place at the Ben Davis Regional. Taylor Nicholson finished first individually for the girls with a time of 18 minutes and 2 seconds. Mary Abramson also finished in the top 10 at 4th place, along with Kelsey Motherseed at 7th. Courtney Kerr also finished 9th for the girls. Boys also finished first, like we talked about, with 6 individual players in the top 13 in this field. Will Anderson at 4th, Taylor Clean at 5th, Matt Everling in 7th, and Alex Schreer and Evan Snowgrass finished 10th and 11th, respectively. So a great regional competition for the Avon cross-country team.
Really, really good. Hendricks County well represented in cross-country.
Well, before we get to the close of the show, let's go and talk about the team of the fall sports season.
Yeah, just mention some teams here that had really great seasons that we covered this year, and we'll just try and pick one out as the team of the fall sports season, if you will. And we both talked about this a little bit, but we nominated Avon football. We just talked about all the cross-country teams. We're going to include everybody in that, boys and girls.
Even though Plainfield boys didn't advance, I mean, they still had an excellent year.
So we have boys and girls from Brownsburg, cross-country, Plainfield girls cross-country, Avon girls and boys cross-country. Avon tennis won their first sectional in a long time, really had an outstanding year. Brownsburg High School volleyball, we've seen what they can do, so their tournament's coming up, but they've had an outstanding year. And then, of course, both Avon soccer and Avon boys soccer and girls soccer, both ranked in the top 5 all year, got in the region here and lost, but outstanding season. So one of those have got to be we'll vote for team of the year.
Yeah,
what do you say, JP?
I also want to throw an honorable mention. I know we don't talk about them enough on the show as much as we should, but Tri-West.
Right.
Excellent year in football with Jake Hindershot.
Yep.
I believe they had 1 loss on the year when it was all said and done. So they had an excellent year, and we'll have a good opportunity to get a 3A championship for them.
Glad you mentioned that, JP. Yeah, they started the season, lost at West Lafayette. They were 0-1. That was their last loss. They won out. They finished at 8-1. Listen to this, folks. Their offensive average with Jake and those fine receivers, 39.1 points a game. Defensive average, 7.7. So Tri-West, I want to see them in the stadium for the state championship.
I think they have a very, very good shot of being there. Mm-hmm. So am I supposed to pick one of these teams?
You got to pick one. Avon football, almost all the cross-country teams, Avon tennis, Brownsburg volleyball, Avon soccer boys, Avon soccer girls.
So am I just picking one sport?
One of those teams as your team of the fall season.
So I can't pick like all the cross-country teams?
Nope.
Okay.
One of them has to be at the top, JP.
Also, don't forget to shout out to Caleb Binge.
Yeah, glad you mentioned that. Kayla Bench for an individual performance. Freshman golf, girls golf, went to the state finals, right?
Yep.
Where'd she finish up?
17th place for Plainfield.
Top 20 finish. So Kayla Bench, we mentioned her almost every week. What a golf season. Just a freshman. She's going to go on to do many, many things, and we'll see her on the LPGA at some time in the future.
I'm going to give – can I give it to both boys and girls for a sport?
You can.
Okay.
We'll do that.
I'm going to go for Avon boys and girls cross country. Just an outstanding year.
Yep.
Really dominated a regional competition. Now they're heading to semi-states. I think they have a good shot of getting the team championship this year. Nothing against Brownsburg, but they were really paced by Harry Sathamurthy.
Yeah.
Plainfield girls also had a very, very solid year, but not quite the competition that Avon put up, at least as far as the numbers and times go. And Avon football has been very, very impressive this year. I'm not going to hold anything back against them, but it'll be very hard for them to win state title. I think they could, but it'll be very hard. But I think the Avon cross country has the best bet of out of all those teams to get a state title this year.
Very good. I am going to go with Avon football. Lost 2 out of their first 4 games, but Coach Bless and his crew, they won out. They won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row at the finish of the season. Now 7-2 as they go into the tournament here. Avon football gets my team of the fall sports season.
So that'll do it for the season of the show, the McDonald-Sanders County Sports Show. Hard to believe it's our last show of the fall season, Chris. It's been a fun adventure.
Good job, JP. Thanks to McDonald's, too.
Yep, and we want to give a shout-out to the McDonald-Sanders County Sports Show for sponsoring the show. Hopefully we'll return for the winter season. Haven't had a final award yet, but I'm hoping we do because it was a lot of fun last year. The McDonald-Sanders County Sports Show was written by me, JP Sinclair, and produced and distributed by AudioSportsOnline.net. Some of the music provided tonight from Mebio's Music Alley. You can check them out at music.mebio.com. Special thanks to Chris Worley for joining me on the broadcast today, as he's done pretty much all season long.
Yep, you're welcome. That was a lot of fun, JP.
Our next show, if it is in the winter season, will be posted on AudioSportsOnline.com once the winter season starts. You can send any feedback, and like I said, we want your feedback on what the losers should have to do the next time we do the Pick'em Challenge on
Give
the
us
show.
that email address one more time for the show.
Yep, that email address is hendrickscountysports@gmail.com. So if you have any other comments or questions or suggestions, always open to suggestions, you can send those our way at that. Or you can contact me on Twitter at SinclairJP. That's SINCLAIRJP. Thanks for tuning in. Till next time, I'm JP Sinclair for Chris Worley, hoping you support high school athletics as much as we do.